and we are live. Today, I'm joined by a guest who is an ex-engineer who stepped away from the career in IT and dived deep into Indian philosophy based on my research, and especially the topic of Vedanta. She holds a postgraduate degree in philosophy and has embraced Vedanta for over a decade now. And I'm excited to explore this topic of Vedanta, the principles, and hopefully talk a bit about consciousness and what really it means from a philosophical or from a Vedanta point of view. So, welcome to the podcast, Dimple, or ShudhDesiGyaan.
Thank you so much, Gopal. I am really excited and glad that we are having this conversation, and I'm really looking forward to it.
So, let's begin. For listeners or for people who are beginners, if if we need to understand what is Vedanta, where do one begin and what does it mean?
Okay. So, Vedanta, I'll just explain what is Vedanta because it is beginners that you're saying. So, people are aware about Vedas. Yeah, they are the oldest scriptures of Sanatan Dharma. But Vedanta is still a new term for a lot of people, I have realized. So, although Vedanta is a part of the Vedas, if you look at the Vedas, they are divided into two sections. One is the ritualistic section, which has all the sacrifices, the yagyas, the part, puja, rituals, mantras. That that is the ritualistic section of the Vedas. And then there is a second part of the Vedas, which is called as Jnanakand, which is the purely knowledge based. And that is what is Vedanta. So Vedanta, if you divide that word, it's very beautiful. Veda Anta, the end of the Vedas. So it is called as the end of the Vedas or also called as the conclusion of the Vedas. It is a part of Vedas, but focusing only on the knowledge section, not any ritual. Although it does not disregard the rituals, it has its own sacred place. But Vedanta specifically focuses on the knowledge section of the Vedas. So, and as you said, if somebody wants to begin, it's a very, very important question. A lot of people has been asking me this. So, I see a lot of, especially people on the Western, even here in India, they want to directly get into the Vedas, because let's read the Vedas. But it's not like that. You cannot just get a copy of the Veda and then start reading and understanding. You will be lost. It is very difficult. And more than that, you have to understand that it is vast what you're trying to explore. If you're trying to explore Vedanta, so Vedanta has three primary texts, which is called as Prastantra, one of which is Bhagavad Gita. Another is the 10 principal Upanishads. So there are a lot of Upanishads, out of which 10 which are considered as the core, which are called as Mukhya Upanishads, on basis of which the teachings of Vedanta is based. Isha Upanishad, Kena Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, there are 10 important Upanishads. And one last is Brahma Sutras. So again, see, all of this will be very heavy for a beginner. But I'm saying this is based on which the whole teachings of Vedanta is based. But for a beginner, I would suggest, a lot of people also directly go to Bhagavad Gita and end up not understanding it or end up dropping it in between or getting even more confused. And so the reason is there is so much commentary. If you look at Sanatan Dharma scriptures, there are core scriptures, there is subsidiary scriptures, then there are commentaries on those scriptures, and there are commentaries on those commentaries. That is how complex the ideas are. So for anybody to, find it difficult to understand Vedanta is very natural, and where to begin with is definitely not an easy task. So I would suggest that if you really want to understand Vedanta, what that philosophy really is, there are 2-3 books I would suggest. One is Bhajagovindam, which is again Prakaran Granth of Vedas, one of the important texts. Again, in the hierarchy, you see, we are coming from Vedas to Upanishads to the commentaries, and now this is Prakaran Granth. So for a beginner, Bhajagovindam, Tattva Bodh, Atma Bodh. These are the core scriptures of Vedanta. For a beginner, easy to understand. Again, whose commentary you are reading is very important. I would suggest commentary of Swami Chinmayananji or commentary of Swami Tejomananji. These three books, Tattva Bodh, Atma Bodh, or Bhajagovind. They are Sanskrit heavy words, maybe new to people, but it's those books are small. And once you start reading it, you will understand it is so profound, it's so precise. It clears cuts through the confusion directly. So don't get intimidated by the names of these books. When you actually start reading, it's actually far more simpler, logical, rational, to the point as compared to all the other books, even Bhagavad Gita or mythology books or the Puranas, which can get a seeker confused.
Mm. But
So these, yeah.
do you need to have a right mindset before you start entering into it, considering that it's like a journey? Because I myself have attempted a few times to understand, and I started by directly jumping into Bhagavad Gita and reading the verses, and then I'm lost. But I over a period of time, what I've thought is that you need to have a right mindset of taking it as a journey and not just trying to say, in 1 month I'll learn everything." Because that was my initial mindset when I started Bhagavad Gita. Like, I have 1 month of free time, I'll finish it off, and then I'm like, I
Yeah.
have all the knowledge of it. So do you have any experience, or do you think that for readers who want to start this journey, they need to have a specific mindset?
Yes, most definitely. Because as you said correctly, it is a journey. It's not like a task, okay, I want to finish this book. It is a journey. You pick up a book, verse by verse, go very slowly, go verse by verse. Like, there are 3 steps in Vedanta. It is obviously essential that you have a teacher, and if you don't have, even if you're picking up these texts, verse by verse, there are a lot of YouTube podcasts also available of these Swamijis. Verse by verse, read it, understand it, reflect upon it. So there are 3 steps in Vedanta: Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Listening. Then second is contemplating. What you have just read, don't just accept it blindly. Question it, understand it. Is it making sense to you? If not, just write down your questions, sit with those questions. And then third is implementation. Once your doubts are clear, you apply that verse in your life. This is how slowly it should go. One verse at a time. If you just read it, it's passive reading, it's not gonna take you anywhere. So
Okay.
yeah, it is a journey to be taken slowly.
But once once readers start listening in, if we need to give some sort of a trailer and you know try to understand if there are any core principles based on which Vedanta or the subcontext like Upanishad, the the Bhagavad Gita, the Brahmopadhyaya, the things that you mentioned, is there any core principles that are very important or are common in all these texts?
Yes. The teachings, right? The teachings of
Yeah,
Vedanta.
yeah.
Huh. Yeah. So there is, in fact, although the scriptures sound so complicated, but there is the teaching, the final teaching is so simple and is so common across all the schools of Vedanta. Number one being that the ultimate reality is Brahman. People always have this question: who is God? How is God? Where is God? How does he look? What is the name? What is the form? And all these things we want to know. So it says that the ultimate reality, it doesn't use Vedanta, it doesn't use a specific word like it is Shiva or Vishnu or Jesus or anything. The ultimate reality, it calls it as Brahman. It's just a word. What they're trying to say is this absolute reality is non dual, it is nameless, it is formless, it is eternal, it is it doesn't have a beginning, it doesn't have an end. That is the core of Vedanta, the absolute reality. And
In
then,
mathematics, like infinite.
yes,
Okay.
infinite. And yeah, so that's the first principle, that the absolute reality is eternal, it is limitless, it is everywhere, and that is all that there is,
Is it on some
omnipresent.
level? Is it on some level talking about universe in itself,
Yeah.
or is universe also something that is like considered to be an entity or an object, and it's even higher than universe? Like, I'm just trying to
No.
brainstorm
Those
here.
are very, very important questions. These are the questions which philosophers have always asked for so many years. And thankfully, Vedanta explores them very nicely. So, what it is, as you're saying, whether a universe is an entity. So, what it says is this Brahman or this absolute reality. Let's just call it absolute reality for easy purposes. And this whole absolute reality is what there is. There is nothing apart from it. Whether it is um, you are talking about the stars or the moons or the other planets, or whether we are talking about trees or beings or animals, it is all one. They're not different. It is all made up of the same principle, which is consciousness. That is the foundation teaching that we're talking about. Obviously, the teachings are vast and difficult to understand in just one podcast, but to give you a gist of what is the main principle or the main teaching of Vedanta is that this absolute reality, which it also calls as consciousness, Brahman or Atman, it is everywhere and it is non-dual, it's not different. And the another teaching is, why do we see it? Now, the next question which generally people ask, the why do we see everything as different, is because of avidya, the lack of right knowledge, because of Maya, that we get into the loop of, no, you are different, I am different, the culture is different, the race is different, the country is different, the continent is different, the planet is different. All this differentiation is the mind which is creating all the differences. That is the Maya, that is the avidya. But the eternal principle, underlying principle, is oneness.
Mm. That every entity in a living entity, I would say, or everything in this world has some sort of a consciousness, and and all that consciousness is connected to Brahman, and Brahman is like one big consciousness. Just trying to put it in my
No,
head,
no,
or
no, you're going up in the perfectly right direction. I am glad
okay,
you are thinking like this. So,
okay,
so what you are saying is everything is, if we say, is consciousness. Okay. And Brahman, the absolute reality, all the names and forms that we see, they arise from Brahman. They are in the Brahman and they dissolve in the Brahman. There's nothing apart from Brahman, basically. So everything is consciousness, just playing with different names, different forms, different colors. They arise in it, they stay in it, and they dissolve in it.
um, I was deeply intrigued by this concept of consciousness, and in my mind, I always related consciousness to identity, my memories, a understanding of who I am, and then make a comprehensive understanding of what consciousness is. But then I had this question: what if my memory gets wiped away tomorrow? Like, I'm a blank slate. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I did in the past. Am I the same conscious body, or am I someone now who is a new form of consciousness um, that I'm experiencing just because my memory is wiped off?
So, there is a lot of confusion regarding consciousness, whereas consciousness is the simplest, most accessible thing to every human, most accessible thing. And it is why we are here. We are speaking and everything is possible. And all this debate, all these discussions on what is consciousness is because of the mind, because of the Maya, because of the avidya, that we think that it is the memory. Some people think it is the breath, the prana, something it is the mind. Everybody has its own way, of understanding consciousness. But Vedanta explains consciousness so beautifully. I'll give you an analogy. For example, if there is light in a room, there is a bulb in the room. The bulb is on. So you can see all the objects in the room. You can see there is a window, there is a table, there is a chair, there's a cupboard, there's a bed. Everything you can see because the light is on. But the moment you turn off the light, and there is no light coming from the window also, of course, everything is dark. So you can't figure out anything, right? You walk, you might hurt yourself somewhere. You don't know where is the bed, where is the cupboard, nothing. So the consciousness is like the light, that bulb. If it is on, You can experience memory, you can think, you can see your arms, you can speak, you can eat, you can walk, you can do everything. You can experience the world outside, you can experience the world inside. But the moment that is gone, the memory, the body, the mind, the speech, hunger, people, world, universe, everything, nothing you can't see. It is because of consciousness that the memory exists. It is because of the consciousness you're able to move, walk, think. So that is the source. Everything else is working because of that source. What we are trying to do is, by the table or the chair, we are trying to understand the bulb. Through memory, if you try to understand the bulb, you're going in the reverse direction. It's not possible. You study the table, you look the table, the chair, the curtains, the bed, because there is light.
And
Are
this
you
light,
understand?
yeah, the
You can't
analogy
study
makes,
the light. You can't study the light. You can only experience it.
and the light is is experienced by us when maybe when we are in the fetus, or when the heart starts beating for the first time, or is that when the consciousness is formed, or is it that when we are in a certain period, when we start realizing that we are now able to walk, we are now able to see, we are able to feel something, and then we realize our consciousness is always there from the time the heart starts beating?
It is. They are really good questions. Consciousness, I'll go by what Vedanta says again. So consciousness is something which is always there. We think that it is only in the living beings. There is again one big misunderstanding that people have, that it is only the living beings which have consciousness. Vedanta is saying that everything in the universe is because of consciousness. Otherwise, it would haven't been even possible or existed. The three principles which it says about consciousness, the defining qualities, is Sat, Chit, Anand, existence. If something is existing purely, how is it even existing? So, existence, consciousness, bliss. It may not, you and I, we are conscious of our consciousness. Those beings which are not living, they're not conscious because there is no mind or another principle to identify with that consciousness. That does not mean it doesn't have consciousness. So, to give you another example, which is very commonly used in Vedanta to explain this concept, like a very common example, like we have golden ornaments. There is golden bangles, there is golden earring, there is a golden watch, there is a golden necklace. You see, they are all of different shapes. So they are different things, but there is one thing common in all of them, which is the gold, right? The
I
gold
was about
is,
to
it
say
is,
the
yeah.
atoms, but gone too deep. No.
Okay, so everything is made up of gold, right? The shape is different. The material is same. That's how consciousness is.
Mm.
All of us, everything in this universe is made up of consciousness. Is the name and the form and the shape and the color and everything is different.
Eventually, it comes down to maybe atoms, I guess, because everything is made up of, or finite elements, or what you call the, there's even a further subsections of atoms, but just to, in my brain, it's
Yeah,
atom is
they have
the,
gone further down. They've gone further
yeah.
down to quarks and protons and neutrons. So much further down they've gone. And ultimately, they are saying it's all energy.
Mm,
In the end, they're all coming down to that.
mm. And
Because if you
that,
look at Einstein's equation, E is equal to mc square, it is all turning out back to energy only.
mm. So energy has a great relationship with consciousness, or is energy nothing but consciousness?
Now, that's a very tricky question. So, I would like to stick with the word consciousness. See, science is still working a lot into, diving deeper into quantum physics, and they are doing excellent work. But I feel in the end, they are going to also reach the same conclusion, but we don't know how long it's going to take,
Mm.
right? We have come down so much in quantum physics. You see so many things there. They, whatever theories are coming, they are very much similar to what we have in Vedanta, such as quantum entanglement is there. Then the observer effect is there. If you see all these things, they are very similar to what Vedanta has been saying. So, of course, science has already come a long way, and there is still a long way to go.
We also talked about quantum entanglement. I don't have much insights on it, but I've read an article that these, now we are going in a different topic. I'll come back to this topic, but this is interesting in my eyes, that protons and electrons, they have a specific spin, and when the observer sees it, then they are like spoiling that experiment. So if there's an photon that gets split, it has different types of spin within itself, like clockwise and anti-clockwise. And if someone observes it, or if an observer observes it, the rotation changes and the experiment fails.
Yeah.
So it was fascinating to me that an observer can change the spin of an photon and electron, and that has something to do with energy, I guess. Which,
Consciousness.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Consciousness. You
Yeah,
observing, it's your consciousness affecting that field, right?
it is something that intrigues me, that science, after considering itself to be like an expert in certain things, is not able to explain certain topics. Like consciousness is one of them that they are not able to explain. There's a lot of discussions going on, but nobody's able to come up with a clear explanation of
You're
this is
not
consciousness.
supposed to. That is what Vedanta is saying. You're not supposed to explain consciousness. There's a very beautiful term in Advait which says neti neti. When you
Okay.
try, if you ask Vedantins properly, what is consciousness? The first method is neti neti. Not this, not this. It is not. It does not have a form. It does not have a name. It does not have a size. It does not have a gender. It does not. Is not big or small, or doesn't have a texture. Not this. Not this. Not this. Because every time you try to give it some name, some form, some quality, you are committing a mistake. How do you define consciousness? It's not possible. You're going backwards. It is the source through which you are able to think itself. It is a source through which you are able to see. It is a source through which you are able to hear. It is a source through which you are able to remember. It is a source through which you are able to analyze. It is a source through which you are acting, talking, moving, you're living your life. It is the main source. You can only experience it. You can live it.
And that ties back to this spinning effect. So if you observe it, then the spin will change, and you are like influencing the outcome of the experiment. So for people who have curious minds, they should try to suppress their curiosity and not try to question what is consciousness in on some level. Because if you try to understand it, that's what it says. Don't try to understand what is consciousness, is what Upanishad is saying. Like, not here, not here, not now. The explanation that you provided is what I understood.
No, that's true. Actually, you know, Upanishad will never tell you to stop your curiosity. It will tell you explore. You think it is your body? You think it's your mind? Okay. You question it. You really think it's your body? Then who is the one who is aware of the body? You think it is your mind? Who is the one who is aware of your thoughts? You think it is your memory? Who is aware of your memory, of your past, of these memories? Somebody who's aware.
I mean, you can say that it is some sort of a storage mechanism in your brain, and brain. So when you say I want to remember about my past, my brain accesses it and portrays projects that to me, wherein I'm able to recall and say it out loud.
Who is able to recall?
That would be me, but
Who is this name?
yeah, and then now I have no idea. So maybe
So,
that's a good question to ask. Like, who am I? Is that explained in Vedanta? Like, who is an individual? What is an identity? Is that something that Vedanta says in a simplistic?
of course, of
Yeah.
course. It is a big chapter. It's a big subject. It's the main thing where the whole Vedanta is revolving. One is the who's absolute reality. Who am I? Where have I come from? This is the major topics in Vedanta. Um, but it's not a question which can be easily answered. So this question of who am I, most profound question in the whole of Vedanta. And Ramana Maharshi says this. that this question should not give you an answer. If it is giving you an answer, then you have failed. The question is supposed to dissolve you. The question is supposed to dissolve the ego, the identity you're holding. That is when you are at the right direction. That is the power of this question, The mind is always seeking answer. Just give me one answer to stick with. The mind wants an end. It wants a definitive answer. But the beauty of consciousness is that let the mind struggle. Be okay with the unanswered questions. Be okay with not knowing. Be okay with what is. Accept that some things cannot be known, some things can be experienced. Why can't we do that? Because we are so logic driven. We so want definitive answers that we can't settle. The moment we don't have answer, we think that we have failed. That's the mind speaking. That's the ego speaking. And that's the reason this question is very, very profound. It takes you back to the source.
Exactly. And I heard this in one of the podcasts that humans are trying to explore space. Humans are trying to move from Earth to Mars and maybe in future to other planets. But if you want to like actually travel from solar system to solar system to solar system, like light years of travel, you can't travel with this body. You have to, on some level, export your, I mean, this is the terms that they have used, export your consciousness into some sort of a light and project that light so that you will travel at the speed of light. And then that light, when it hits something else in the other planetary or other galaxies, you are able to move from one consciousness or one place to another place and experience what is there on the other side. And that's why science is like going in deep about what is consciousness. Can we understand consciousness? Can we export it in some levels and maybe use it as a means for us to travel? uh, and then we have Vedanta, which says, don't explore it, let it dissolve and
Mm.
let it be. So there is something that science on some level is challenging these ancient preachings or ancient teachings about Vedanta. And I would assume that people who are trying to explore consciousness have to first read Vedanta or read these writings that have been written thousands of years ago, just to understand what the great minds back then said, and maybe use it as some sort of a knowledge in their research, I guess. Or maybe they should not research. I don't know.
No, no, no. Research should never stop. That is what has gotten so far. And I
Mm,
have immense respect. I am from a science background. I was an engineer. I was a physics teacher. So I have immense respect for what science is doing, and it should definitely continue its research. But now we are coming to an understanding where you see, so many great scientists, whether it was Einstein or whether it was Tesla or Schrodinger, all of them have been influenced by the Gita, by the Vedanta. You see their quotes because they understand what these people have been saying. Carl Sagan, that when they realized that how ancient the cosmos has been, how way back we go to the Big Bang theory, millions of years. No other civilization, no other scripture has been saying it, but our culture has been saying that it is an endless cycle for millions and millions of years it goes on. And that is the reason they do come back to our scriptures. And so we shouldn't, try to think that the philosophy is greater or science is greater. They both should work hand in hand, I feel. And that is what will actually lead to some of the greatest transformation in a person or as a civilization when they go hand in hand.
mm. And
That is the best way.
do you think that as an Indian community or an Indian society, these days we are embracing more of what Vedanta is trying to preach, or are we like moving away from its teaching and we might need to like stop, rethink, and maybe refocus on what our elders taught us?
No, I think recently what I'm seeing in the past 1 or 2 years, there is a massive inclination happening towards Sanatana Dharma up towards spirituality, towards consciousness, towards awakening. A lot of people are becoming aware, a lot of people are becoming curious, a lot of people want to explore, and they are coming back. But again, that's a good sign, yeah. That's a great thing that is happening. But it is a lived experience, and
Mm,
everybody is on their own journey. And I think it's beautiful what we are experiencing as a collective consciousness today.
mm. But do you think that this Vedanta and these teachings can be introduced in education systems so that like people who are younger or who are in the education cycle are able to understand? It's very difficult for their brain to comprehend it. Maybe like if I take myself 10, 20 years back and someone would have started speaking Sanskrit and started saying things, I would have said boring back in my stupid brain. But as life experience happens and you start seeing life through the journey, then you think that these teachings are very important. So, is it a good balance to introduce children about Vedanta at that stage, or is it something that they have to self-explore, self-learn, and reach that journey?
I think it should be introduced early on because uh, everybody is changing so fast. Children today, we underestimate them, but they are way ahead. Their minds are way ahead. They want to know, they want to explore, they want answers. At
Mm,
such a small age, children are having the same questions which you and I are happening. And it is shocking to me. My own son is 6 year old, and the kind of questions he's asking, I am shocked. Like, this is what I thought when I became 25 or 30. How are you even thinking like this? And maybe I really, if I go back, I think even I had those questions, but I had nobody to answer it correctly to me. And their biggest advantage is that they do have people. If we
mm,
introduce them in the
mm,
education system, which the government is trying,
mm,
a lot of parents are individually trying themselves. If
mm,
we do introduce, they will be given the right answers at the
mm,
correct time itself when the curiosity is coming. And if you give them the right answer, then they will
mm.
go in the right direction. Instead of going away from the scriptures, they will move towards it because they know it's more logical, it is resonating, it's making sense, which we did not have when we were growing up.
And that could be an answer. Could be simplicity, because when I did try to explore it, I directly jumped into the books and it was too complex for me. But if there is someone who is of higher wisdom and is able to, understand, use the life journey experience and simplify it and just tell it to these kids, they'll be able to relate it much better, I feel. And your videos are helping in Instagram, at least for my brain. It is simplistic and people are able to relate to it, is what I think, and that is needed. And
Yeah,
that's where I feel.
simplifying. Yeah.
Yeah. No, continue.
Simplifying is very important, because these concepts are complicated, they are abstract, they are difficult. So unless you simplify it, how will people understand? And it's not a
Mm,
topic which everybody is excited about,
mm,
and so it has to. I also teach. It's not just the videos. I have been taking lectures of.
okay.
I just finished Bhaja Govindam.
Okay.
We used to meet every Monday, Thursday. We dive into every verse and try to see what it makes sense to us or not. How do we implement it in our daily lives? I've done on Nirvana Shatakam also. I have done just Vedant also. I have done Devi
Okay.
Mahatmya. So scripture by scripture, because just the videos, how much you will understand, right? It,
But
it
that will
is a
be a hook.
journey.
Your
Yeah,
videos will be a hook to
yeah,
start asking questions, at least to be like,
yeah.
okay, why are we doing this and what's the meaning behind it? And if people want to explore more, is there some, is that in your website that they'll be able to find more information?
So currently the website is still, I'm working on it. But whenever I'm taking a new course, I do make reels on it that this
Okay.
course is upcoming, and I put a link in the bio to register for the courses. So
Okay, so it's
that's how it
for
works.
listeners out there, it's just follow
Follow the page for
ShudhDesiGyaan.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
follow the Instagram page for now.
Yeah. um, Another topic I want to talk about is, I have recently introduced myself to philosophy. because back when I was growing up, philosophy was not very much existent in my eyes. I was mainly math, science, chemistry, uh, IT kind of a guy. And then recently I've started asking questions and got introduced to philosophy, but it's mainly Western philosophy, or mainly philosophy um, that I got introduced to. And when I heard that Vedanta is also is something that is also talking about philosophy, it surprised me. For me, Vedas was like knowledge. I have a massive bundle of knowledge, and I read those knowledge. I am getting wiser. But in my brain, it was like there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Like philosophy points you towards wisdom, and math, science, physics points you towards knowledge, is what my brain registers. So I was mainly focusing to be knowledgeable, but these days I've stopped being that. I'm trying to focus more on wisdom. And one of the quotes that I I read, which I'll try to read here, is to obtain knowledge, add things every day, and to obtain wisdom, subtract things every day. So that is one of the great things that stuck with me. Is there anything in Vedanta or Indian philosophy that you found extremely interesting, or some preachings like this which you have held tightly, or you want to yeah, you want to say it here?
So, yeah, sure. So, there is a lot of teaching in Vedanta, of course, but there is this one particular shloka which I have stuck to since a long time. And so they are called as Mahavakyas. So there is Vakyas and then there is Mahavakya, the great saying of the Vedas. So there are four great sayings. One of them, they all mean one. Ultimately, they kind of point to the same thing, which is Tattvam Asi. You are that. Thou art that. So it is a Mahavakya and I've stuck to that. And thankfully, it has changed my life a lot. I try to sit with it as much as possible. What it says is basically, the absolute reality that we talk about, the God that we talk about, the divinity that we talk about, the Brahman, that is ultimately, the reflection of that is ultimately within you. You are that, Tattvamasi, that reflection is within you. And the more you sit with this Mahavakyas every morning, every day, everything else starts dissolving. Not like sit like in an analysis way, but just sit like with the question of who am I? This is the great sayings of all the Vedas. Ultimately, it says that the absolute reality that you're searching outside, you're praying outside, you are that the same reflection is inside you. And there cannot be any more powerful teaching or saying than this, I feel. There cannot be any more a greater affirmation than this. You are
Is
that,
is
yeah.
is that why all these great preachings or saying of Vedanta is at the end of Vedas? Because you first have to like understand scriptures, knowledge, and all that first part, because then you'll be knowledgeable, and only then you can, through that knowledge, understand um, all these one liner Mahavakyas. Because if as a kid you listen or hear Mahavakyas, I don't think you'll be able to profoundly understand the meaning of it. And maybe that's the reason these highly complex things are at the end of Vedas or at the Vedantas, so that people are sufficiently knowledgeable to comprehend these complex thoughts. Is that is that correct? Or
Yeah, it is correct. It is absolutely correct. So, very beautiful conclusion that you have come to on your own. So, it's in Vedanta, we say that to experience consciousness, first you need to purify your mind, without which you can't experience divinity, that consciousness within. So, how do we purify your mind? Is all the rituals that you do, all the part puja that we do, all the mantra chanting that you do, all the reading the scriptures that you do, all the good karmas that you do. All of this does not lead to liberation. All of this that we do leads to the purification of the mind. And once the mind is pure, there is no noise, there are no doubts. There are no questions, there is no negativity, there is no jealousy, nothing. When the mind is finally still, pure, after all of this, that is when you can actually understand the profoundness of a Mahavakya or the profoundness of Vedanta itself. But it's not necessarily that you have to do. This is definitely how it works according to Vedanta also. But then there have been great sages in India also who experienced this profoundness without having to take this whole long route also. Because this is a very specific case, not always, but 90% have to go through the whole process. But 10% there are chances that you directly go. That depends only on one condition, which is mumukshutva. How badly do you want liberation? How badly? You know, Kabir says, "Moko kaha ढूंढे रे बंदे, मैं तो तेरे पास में." मतलब एक पल की तलाश में मैं मिल जाऊंगा. But how badly do you want it? It depends on that. You can die, there's a direct access. But people want a lot of things in life, not liberation. And that is the reason it takes a long turn.
Wow, that's a very nice way of putting it. I have yeah, I have no words to say. It's very nice. Does Vedanta? This is based on my personal experience that when I started doing meditation, I found myself my baseline to be like very calm, very quiet, and able to start thinking all these philosophical questions. Um, does Vedanta talk anything about meditation, or is that something that doesn't sit in the realm of Vedanta?
Now, of course, it sits in the realm. We're talking about
No, no, it's just
consciousness.
a question. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. So, yeah, meditations, there have been, in Upanishads, there have been so many methods of meditation which has been discussed.
Mm,
And, so yeah, meditation is a core part. When we talk about the nididhyasana or implementing, that is the first thing which comes sitting with yourself, sitting in
mm,
awareness, looking. Just Sakshi Bhav is a very important part of Vedanta. Sakshi Bhav is witness attitude.
mm,
But the meditation in Vedanta is not like, focus on your breath, which goes towards a little yoga.
mm.
Concentrate your mind on a particular thing or control your breath. Vedanta is more about observing, the like being a witness to what is happening in your mind, what is happening to your breath, what is happening outside, what is happening inside. Awareness. It
Mm.
mainly revolves about being aware. So meditation takes a slightly different route when it comes to Vedanta, because we talk about Sakshi Bhav over here. So even if you're sitting in meditation, you become so unattached to the thoughts, so uninterested in the thoughts. We're not even trying to control it. We are left it. Do whatever you want to do, we don't care. Your mind, you're operate. Just as the way heart is operating, the mind is operating. You have left all interest in it. And slowly, the ego dissolves. And then you get into that conscious state, where you experience that bliss and the peace and the silence when you step away from the mind. So that
Interesting.
is, yeah, that is the turn which Vedanta takes.
When I was doing meditation, I was mainly focusing on breath just to kill all the thoughts because my brain was just, hey, this, say that, and this and that. So just to be aware of that I'm meditating and not sleeping, I had to focus myself on like breathing. But I also agree with your point that it's very important to also be aware, like what's happening around you, within you, so that then you can, truly experience um, the ego dissolving. I can understand that point. If we slightly move away from this topic of meditation and go into the topic of festivals, um, does is there anything within the Vedanta realm that talks about why should we celebrate festivals, or is festival celebration like we recently celebrated Makar Sankranti, and is that only celebrated just as an astronomical thing, or is it like an indication to farmers that, hey, now might be the time we start changing certain things from an agricultural point of view, or does it have a deep meaning that Vedanta mentions or explains?
So Vedanta doesn't really deal with the festivals and all of this came much later. Vedanta was during
Okay.
the time of the Vedas and Upanishads and later on the schools of Vedanta. At that time, the focus on Vedanta, you will see, is if you look at the scriptures, they don't even talk about festivals. It has grown as a culture with time, with living, and with observing nature, with observing the movements of the sun, with observing the movements of the moon, and how it affects us, our mood, our life, the nature around us. Based on all of this, very scientifically, these festivals have been developed. It is not there in Vedant, but yes, it is related because ours is a lunisolar calendar. Hindu
Mm,
calendar is a lunisolar. It takes into account the lunar cycles, it takes into account the solar changes, and a lot of deep study has been done. So the whole Jyotish Shastra has been taken care of. So, how, when the seasons are changing, how it is affecting our body,
mm,
physiology, our psychology, every full moon, every new moon, how our physiology and psychology does get affected. Based on that, certain rituals have been decided. Based on that, fasting, based on that, the festivals, you look, most of the festivals fall on the full moons or on new moons. Why? Because it does affect your physiology. It does affect
mm,
your psychology. So, eating the right food on that time, fasting on that time, praying on those times, meditating on those times help you stay grounded, helps you prepare
mm,
for the season. Navratris, if you see, there are four Navratris. We are only aware about one. There are four Navratris in a year, and they all come during the seasonal shift from
mm,
monsoon to winter, from winter to spring, from spring to monsoon again. So that way, in between these season changes, because it's a massive change the whole earth is going through, right? Wherever you're living.
mm,
So
mm,
obviously, we think only the outside is getting affected, but inside is also getting affected. And that is the reason by not giving it. Because imagine if your computer is going on reset, restart, reset. You don't open 10-hour applications at that time. You don't want to touch the laptop at that time. So when there is a seasonal change happening outside and inside, you want to fast, you want to pray, you want to do less. You don't want to put so much food in your body. You don't want to do too much work on that days, right? You want to give the body time to regrow, to reset.
mm.
So
But these
this is
things are not mentioned in the Vedanta teachings or
no, no,
in the
no.
Vedas. Okay.
In Vedanta, it doesn't come, but it's just an understanding you develop.
Mm.
That they have definitely planned it like this. Because if you
But
look at these festivals, it is how it is designed.
it's interesting that the concepts of festival is not something that is mentioned in Vedas or Vedanta, because I don't know what was back in that time when they were preaching Vedas, or when they were teaching these, what was the form of social gathering, because festivals is also a form wherein people meet, families meet, you gather, you
It is
celebrate.
there. So sorry to interrupt you,
No, no,
Gopalji.
no,
You
continue,
are
continue.
exactly right. So all of that may be there in the Vedas in the ritualistic section. I told you, right?
Mm,
There are two sections of the Vedas. So when you're
mm,
talking about the Vedanta, it primarily talks about consciousness, about reality, about
mm,
avidya and maya and mind and your existence, right? So
mm,
obviously, festival doesn't come into picture in all of this. It's pure
mm,
knowledge that they're talking. But the whole
mm.
festival part, I'm definitely sure it comes in the ritualistic section of the Vedas because Vedas are vast, there are so many topics covered in it. I'm sure it comes in that. It's just I have
Mm,
not explored that part. But when I look
mm.
at it's a very intellectual design, Somebody has obviously thought about a lot of things before planning this.
And that's what worries me, because people, our ancestors or our forefathers have done a very good job of setting up these rituals and writing these texts, but our generation or future generation, if you're not able to tap into it, or are not able to get interested or get curious about these things, then it's lost forever, right? Because the language or the form that it was written in is something that is not used right now. I mean, it's very, very seldom that we speak Sanskrit, or very seldom that we speak those languages that these books or these texts were written in. And it's only through people who have gone through that journey that we can tap into and understand it. And if people are not curious, it's gone forever. So that's what scares me. Uh, but I hope there are more people like you out there who are preaching and teaching and trying to explain these concepts to people. Moving from this point, the video that I found very interesting. There are many videos. The topic that I wanted to discuss, and I assume it also reflected in number of views that you got, was about Hanuman Chalisa. And I didn't know, to be honest, I didn't do a lot of research on Hanuman Chalisa. I didn't know that. I always thought that Hanuman Chalisa is something that is like ancient scripture, and we just recite it to get courage. And whenever things are scary around us, we try to recite it. But I didn't know that it was in 15th century that Tulsidas ji wrote it, and it was like an eye-opening moment for me. And then I read a lot about it. So thanks for that. But why do you think that these like Hanuman Chalisa is such a psychological uh, anchor, or something to fall back on when we have things that are scary or things that we lose control of?
So Hanuman Chalisa, I have personally also seen the power of it, and so many countless people have seen. There is like legit proof. If you ask people, when they chant Hanuman Chalisa, they have seen change in their lives. Their lives have transformed. It has gotten better. They have got more strength. It has been working. So if you ask me why it is working, I think the number one reason is faith. If
Mm,
somebody reads it without faith, I don't think it's going to work. So first of all, I think you need to have faith in Hanumanji. And faith in Hanumanji works really fast because he's said to be a living deity. Even now, he is said that, there were certain gods who did not leave the realm of earth, still here living in some form. And so he reaches out very quickly if you call him. With full faith, if you call him, he reaches out quickly. And Hanuman Chalisa was designed by Tulsidas. He was a great saint poet, and so when he designed it himself, as you said, right, you saw in the video, he designed it himself when he was in captivity by a
mm,
king. He designed it specifically to empower the mind whenever the mind is in fear. And you look at the verses, you know, the verses are like, the way he has overcome so many problems, overcome so many demons, and all of that. So in the same way, give us also strength. And it is, so there are so many angles to this. But I think the number one reason why it works is faith, and the text in itself is powerful. And you add
yeah.
faith to it, and it works miracles.
I mean, that is something that Hanuman Chalisa is something that I listen to on a regular basis. Even my whole family listens to on a regular basis. But the sad part about it is that I didn't know the backstory of it until I saw the video that you shared, and then it was a shocking moment for me that it was written in 15th century. I thought it dated long time ago, maybe during
Oh,
Mahabharata, Ramayana times. But I did it was something that I should have researched, but I didn't, and then the video helped me a lot.
wonderful.
Yeah, but with that, I think we have ended all the questions that I have. Is there anything that you think we need to talk on, or you have any points to discuss on?
No, so everybody who's listening to this particular, I would just like to say two things. If you want to start your journey on Vedanta, again, you can put up maybe the links of the books, which is
For sure.
Bhaja Govindam, Tattva Bodh, Atma Bodh. And if you would like to understand them more in depth with me, then you can follow my page on Instagram, which is ShudhDesiGyaan. There I keep updating about my upcoming courses, and together we can explore it. And yeah, thank you so much for having me here. It was a wonderful conversation. And
Hopefully,
I
we'll have
thoroughly
more of
enjoyed
it.
it.
I love these philosophical conversations, and it's very difficult to have these when you don't have another person who is knowledgeable and who can explain all these questions, because I have so many questions. And when I ask it to my close friends, they're like, ask someone else, ask ChatGPT. So it helps me when someone is able to like explain it, and even for the audience, I think it's a great knowledge and great information that we talked on. So thanks everyone for listening in.